Hey everybody, we're back for episode 44 of Sports Speak. Glad to be here for the first time in a couple of weeks. I'm Eddie Kalegi.
And I'm Tim Moore.
We're joined by a panel, Zoe Alter, Rahill Jaiswal. We'll be breaking down Super Bowl 55 between the Kansas City Chiefs and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in just a few minutes. But we have a couple big sports topics to get to, mainly in the realm of trades and free agency. And we're going to start in Major League Baseball, where Trevor Bauer opted to sign with the Los Angeles Dodgers, who were really not part of the conversation for the first, few weeks of this whole battle. It seemed like the Mets or the Angels were the two main destinations. The Angels fizzled out, and it turned down to between the Mets and the Dodgers. And you can see behind me, I'm a Mets fan, and I'm going to plead my case right here because, I was reading the comments, replies to Anthony DiComo, all these Mets fans freaking out that Steve Cohen's breaking his promises. Listen, first of all, Trevor Bauer in that rotation, I'm not saying he's a bad pitcher. He's one of the best pitchers in the game. But can you imagine, you already have Marcus Stroman, you already have Noah Syndergaard. There's a lot of personality and clashing personality. If you have Trevor Bauer there as well, can you see how chaotic that would be? And also, Trevor Bauer wants to be a number one guy. Jacob deGrom's not letting him have that title. And with the Dodgers, I don't care if Clayton Kershaw's there, Trevor Bauer becomes the ace of that team. I know Kershaw figured himself out finally in the World Series, but Trevor Bauer is the best pitcher on that team. He wants to be that number one guy. He wants to be in the limelight. So I don't know if he would have necessarily fit that well with the Mets. I know it's disappointing. They missed out on all three of the big free agents, but they still got James McCann. They got Francisco Lindor. And I'll tell you, if they're able to extend both Lindor and Conforto, I think the Mets are in a perfect position. If you don't extend both of those guys, that's a little concerning. But I think if you can extend both of those guys, the Mets are in a good spot, and you really can't blame Steve Cohen that much because let's be honest, with everything going on with GameStop and everything with the old GM, the Mets have other things to worry about right now. So I wouldn't be too critical of this Trevor Bauer situation. Tim, what's your opinion on all this?
To be honest, from an outside perspective, obviously, yes, I think that the Mets gave it their all in regards to Steve Cohen trying to go out and get Trevor Bauer. Listen, when you look at the deal, they got out-dueled. It's really that simple. The Dodgers offered $5 million more. Essentially, let's be honest, it's going to be a 2-year deal in which Bauer is going to make $85 million. And at the end of the day, the Mets should be ashamed. But I am going to say this. Where you should be upset if you're a Mets fan is the fact that this is now the third time. I apologize, thing went off. But this is going to be the third time now in the entirety of free agency in which the Mets have been outdueled. George Springer for one, JT Realmuto for second, and now you look at this now with Trevor Bauer. It's a little bit concerning because the whole aspect for the New York Mets this offseason was that Steve Cohen was going to spend. This team was going to improve. And, to an extent, Steve Cohen did prove that he was willing to spend. But the fact that you've gotten outbid 3 times, to me, is a little bit bothersome. And for Trevor Bauer, listen, that LA team just came off a World Series. And the fact that it got better is definitely impressive. But I wouldn't be surprised, too, if his tenure there is relatively short, 1-2 seasons, and you find himself maybe with the Mets in the future or even with another team. I think that the Mets, yes, they got away with essentially not giving a big contract. But in retrospect here, if you're a Mets fan, yes, you want to extend Conforto. I think that is huge. But I don't think free agency, just for example, Jackie Bradley Jr. is not the next best option. I really think the Mets have to go out and make a big trade here. Or obviously, they already got Francisco Lindor, but to really help this offense get better. Otherwise, it's going to be another typical Mets season where there was all this hype really turned out to nothing.
And there have been rumors also recently about Marcelo Zuna potentially. I don't know how well he'd fit in playing in left field. They'd have to shift things around, maybe move Brandon Nimmo back to center field. Not exactly sure how they'd fit that. But one more point I want to make about this, those 3 deals you alluded to, Realmuto, Springer, and Bauer. Each situation, I'm not going to be here and try to make a bunch of excuses for this team. But with JT Realmuto, he had been with the Phillies. A lot of people were saying he was just going to resign there. George Springer, that's the one that I think hurts the most because he's from Connecticut. New York is closer than Toronto. And the Mets, you'd think, are maybe a better set team than Toronto. But think about, too, George Springer, that whole thing happened around the same exact time when this whole Jared Porter scandal came out. So the Mets have been in the news for the wrong reasons. Between Jared Porter, now Mickey Callaway is in trouble, and then, of course, everything that happened with GameStop stocks and Steve Cohen's connection with that. And then Bauer, the other thing I forgot to say, too, he's getting $45 million his second year. It would be so just rude to Jacob deGrom to be paying Trevor Bauer more than you're paying him. I know Jacob deGrom took a hometown discount to stay with the Mets and is making far less than he probably should with how good he's been these last 3 years, but paying Bauer more just would not be a good look for this team. Rahill, over to you. What's your take on this whole trade? Not this trade, free agency signing.
I mean, really, if you look at it, it's not so surprising that he chose the Dodgers over the Mets as a California native. No offense, he also wants to go to a winning ball club, which is not what the Mets are right now. But as far as, Mets fans should be disappointed that they lost on Trevor Bauer. But again, I feel like the Mets are sorted kind of when it comes to pitching, with the starting pitching rotation. So you guys talk about paying him that much money compared to what deGrom is getting, which is really interesting. I didn't even think about that at first. So, again, as an outside perspective, but really, you have to go to the Dodgers. Of all the teams out there, you went to the Dodgers. I wasn't too happy. I would have been okay with him going to the Mets, but as a Yankees fan here, I'm of course he chose the Dodgers. Easy way out.
And poor Padres, too, because they've been working this whole offseason to bolster that pitching staff so they could be ahead of the Dodgers. And now the Dodgers go right back ahead of them. Zoe, you're a fellow Mets fan. What's your whole assessment of this free agency here and Steve Cohen's first free agency as owner?
Okay, this is the thing. Steve Cohen came in, and like you and every other Mets fan, I expected, let's go. We're going to get some crazy guys. He's going to spend money, because that was the thing that was one of the many reasons. There were many reasons, don't get me wrong, why Mets fans wanted the Wilpons out, right? But one of the main reasons was that they weren't willing to spend the money that we wanted them to spend on the team. But now the money's being spent on the team. The thing with Trevor Bauer is that, and George Springer for the matter, is that you say you lost two of those free agents, right? But if you look at it, if you're Trevor Bauer and you have an option to decide between the Dodgers and the Mets, I don't care, even if the Mets are paying me $5 million more. Honestly, you go to the Dodgers because you're going to win the World Series. I think that's the difference. You're going to get a title. Whereas if you're with the Mets, sure, maybe, but it's also the Mets. You have to remember, Daniel Murphy just retired. It's just the curse. It's just cursed for some reason. We're Mets fans. It's what it is, right? And then you look at the George Springer side of it, and you have the option between going to Toronto and, again, coming to New York. And sure, New York's fun to play in, but Toronto this offseason, I don't know if you guys have the same view, but for me, they're one of the scariest threats, immediately. They were before, but immediately, I can't even get my head off them. Not that I forgot about the Dodgers. You can't forget about the Dodgers. But other than the Dodgers, Toronto is probably my second favorite to win. Just going to this year, I know it's early and everything. But as the players, as a Mets fan, I'm upset that we didn't get them. But for team chemistry and the way they would have fit in, I'm not 100% sure how that would have worked, especially with the Bauer thing, as you guys were saying. But it comes down to, for me, if you're that player, what is your goal? Is your goal to get paid, or is your goal to win? And these two guys have been in the league. They both know they're good and they can get paid, but they also want to win. So to me, it makes sense why they went the places they went. The Mets don't have that appeal yet. And maybe that's something that the team needs to build and that Steve Cohen's going to build. But until they have that appeal that the Dodgers have, that we're going to be a World Series contender this year, I don't think you're going to draw huge names, no matter how much money you give them.
Eddie, I would like to ask you a question as well. Obviously, with this acquisition of Bauer for the Dodgers, money going to be tight. Do we think this is going to be the end of the tenure for Justin Turner in LA?
I think so. I don't see. Trevor Bauer's getting $40 million guaranteed his first year. You can't really afford Justin Turner, because Justin Turner is deserving of a pretty strong contract. My one thing with him, though, I think it's going to be a Mike Moustakas story all over again, because we're in February now. I think he's going to end up grabbing a one-year deal with somebody. I don't know who, but I think it's going to be a small one-year deal with a contender, just fit in with a third baseman, and then he'll have to hope that the COVID situation's over, that teams have more available funds, and he can secure himself a long-term deal, because he's still in the prime of his career. He's still got a few good years left. He doesn't really depend on speed. He's got power. He can be a consistent hitter, and he's a good defender. and he's great for teams. So I could see him following a similar path that Moustakas did. But I want to shift gears to the NFL, where just like when Alex Smith got traded, we got another weird random trade before the Super Bowl that I still find a little perplexing here. Matthew Stafford, after 12 years with the Lions, is heading to the Rams for Jared Goff and a whole heaping of other picks. The Rams now have given up their last 7 first-round draft picks. I mean, they've traded away basically everything, but they now have Matthew Stafford, who they say puts themselves in a winnable position. Yet Matthew Stafford's never gotten past the wild card round in the playoffs, and Jared Goff hasn't made a Super Bowl. But Zoe, as a Lions fan, we got to start with you here. What's your position here from a Lions fan's perspective?
Okay, first of all, I'm so deeply offended that you compare this to the Alex Smith trade. I don't even know if I can continue to sit here and have this conversation with you, but I will for the greater good. So second of all, looking at this trade, I'm not happy about it. As a Lions fan, I was sad to see Stafford go. I love Stafford. I understand why they did it because you had to make the decision. Are we going to fully rebuild, or are we going to rebuild this team around Stafford? You get rid of Stafford. That's fine. That's not the thing I have an issue with. The thing I have an issue with, you get rid of Stafford, and part of the deal is you have to take in Goff. They didn't even ask for Goff. They just got Goff because the Rams can't pay both Goff and Stafford because this isn't like the MLB where you don't have a salary cap. So you have to pay both guys. So we take in Goff. We are now paying Goff more than we were paying Stafford. And that is what bothers me the most. Because honestly, if you look at it, I get the numbers. If you look at the numbers due to Pro Football Focus, they're about the same. Their stats are about the same. And you mentioned, sure, Stafford hasn't gotten very far in the playoffs. But the Lions had Barry Sanders and they couldn't get very far in the playoffs. Like, the Lions have had so, and I'm not comparing Matt Stafford to Barry Sanders before I get demolished by everyone on the face of the planet. I promise you that. But we had Barry Sanders, we had Calvin, we had 2 of the all-time greats at their positions. Stafford, he can make his own legacy now. He's out of Detroit. But the 2 of them who spent their careers here, and the Lions couldn't do anything with them. I think that shows it's more of the Lions' issue than Stafford's issue. Stafford has done everything for this club, and I definitely am sad to see him go. I was talking to you guys about this before. I will keep his jersey on my wall proudly. He will stay here. He will be the quarterback that I grew up watching. But I am really excited for the future because I've always seen a Lions team where it's always the fear of if Stafford goes down, this team's screwed. That's what happened last year when he hurt his back. This year, every time he went down because the line let up, we were all like it was just fear in addition to everything. And I think it's hard now. You have some decisions to make regarding Galladay, regarding some other players, but you can spend that money elsewhere. You can go out, you can get guys in the draft. I'll say one more thing and then I'll stop ranting about this. But the one more thing that I would like to say about it is that regarding the trade, the reason that I didn't love the trade was I get that you get 2 first-rounders, but I didn't like you're sending your QB away, right? And as a Lions fan, if you ask most Lions fans, we believe in Stafford. Like, I know he has his flaws and everything, but he was able to make even a little bit out of a system that is the Lions system. If you can do something there, I think you get credit for that. Also, his arm, some of the throws he's made, whatever. You send him to the Rams, who already went deep in the playoffs with Jared Goff and when they benched Jared Goff and that whole situation there. You send Matt Stafford there, you make them even more of a contender potentially. And sure, you get 2 first-rounders, but what that means if they're contenders who are going to make the playoffs, you get 2 early second-round picks. So you get 2 second-round picks, and then you get the 3rd this year. Great. But in the next 2 years, Stafford's still going to be with the Rams. And that means that you're going to have late first-rounders. You're not going to get what the Browns had, where they had the 2 picks in the first 5. That's not going to happen. You're going to get your first-rounder the Lions get because they're going to suck for the next 7 years if they can get anything together before then because it's the Lions. But you get 2 late-round picks, and I think that's what angered me the most because you're giving away Stafford. You're paying Goff more than you were paying Stafford, and you have to deal with 2 picks where you're not going to get the top prospect in the draft. I'll retire now. You guys can go for it.
Well, I want to say, in some ways, you can kind of think of this as a win-win situation because for the Rams, they're getting Matthew Stafford, who's more of a consistent guy. It's clear they soured on Jared Goff because let's not forget, Jared Goff was active, and they opted to start John Wolford over him in a playoff game. They just brought Jared Goff in after John Wolford got hurt, which means they opted to start a guy who had played 1 NFL game in his career over a quarterback who took them to the Super Bowl. So it was clear that was not salvageable. Now, the benefit here with the Lions, they do get those draft picks, but Zoe mentioned there are some tough points here, but Matthew Stafford now gets the opportunity to try to maybe play in some more, no offense, Zoe, but some more competitive football games maybe.
I want to see him get a ring. If I see him get a ring, I will be happy. I know it's not with Detroit, but he will forever be one of the favorites in Detroit. So, yeah.
He's very underrated too. I always feel like him, Matt Ryan, and Phillip Rivers are three quarterbacks who have always floated under the radar, but they're very consistent. They get numbers, and Matthew Stafford also is playing constantly hurt. If you look at him on fantasy, he always is like questionable with 7 injuries, and he still plays and goes for 300 yards. So
what do you mean he broke his back last week? He's starting, yeah.
So like that's something good that the Rams are getting out of this. It's going to be interesting to see what the Lions do and how long Jared Goff is actually the starter there, if at all. So it'll be fun to see. Rahill, from your perspective, what do you like about this deal?
Well, I mean, it's just a weird deal, kind of one that no one expected, because we were expecting the Lions to trade Stafford because a report came out that there was going to be a mutual agreement that it was time to split. But I wasn't expecting the Rams. I was expecting him to go somewhere maybe like, San Francisco. I would have liked him in Chicago as well. I think that would have been great.
Chicago, if he went, that would be such a diss to the Lions if he went to Chicago. I would say there's zero chance he goes there. I wanted him to go to the Colts. I think
there we go. That's probably why they didn't send him to Chicago. But I thought San Francisco was an option. I still think San Francisco is an option for Deshaun Watson. But yeah, it's one of those weird trades. But again, if you're a Rams fan, I mean, you got to be liking the trade. You get rid of Jared Goff, who's a liability. Like, Eddie, you say, he brought him to the Super Bowl. Well, let's be real here. In the divisional round against the Cowboys, it was all run. Cowboys couldn't stop the run to save their lives. NFC title game, they got bailed out because of that, we all know, the infamous pass interference call. Then in the Super Bowl, he misses Brandon Cooks on a wide open touchdown that would have tied the game. Now, so there we talk about I will defend him, though, in the John Wolford situation because he was coming off thumb surgery. So it's not.
And then he came in and played like there was nothing wrong with him.
He did play well. He did play well against Green Bay. Let's give him that. But
maybe he'll do it this year. He has to play them twice.
And now you get Matthew Stafford, who is very underrated. He makes a lot of those. I don't want to compare him, to the greats, but he makes a lot of those flashy throws that Mahomes does. He does those, under the, those weird pitches, some no lookers, but he just never gets any media attention for it. Because all the media is, what did Patrick Mahomes do? Stafford can do some of those things, but never gets any media attention for it. He's highly underrated. So this is a great deal for the Rams. For the Lions, I mean, it's time for it's rebuild. It's rebuild. You're trading Stafford. You're trading away the heart and soul of your football team for ever since he's been there. We all know the injuries he's played through. There was a game against the Browns. That mic'd up game where throws the ball, his shoulder pops out. They pop it back in. He goes back. He throws the 1-yard touchdown for the win, and his shoulder pops out again. So we all know how tough he is, but yeah, good for Stafford. Give him another chance. But man, I just feel bad for Goff, man. Going from LA to Detroit.
No, I do too.
And
wait till he gets
him, but,
see how he feels then.
But again,
2 draft picks, Goff and Wentz, which just happened to both of them in that same.
But again, win-win situation, I guess, for both teams. Rams, you get a more consistent quarterback. Lions, you start rebuilding, and we'll see. They'll probably take a quarterback in
the
this
win
draft.
for the Lions is you start rebuilding. Let's go.
or maybe if you're the Lions, you maybe want to go out and get a Carson Wentz. I don't know.
So,
but
please do not.
I feel like that's something they would do.
Am I the only one that thinks, though, this trade really doesn't look as bad as what it actually seems to be? Now, don't get me wrong. The Rams, of course, trade away Jared Goff and send him to Detroit. Essentially, I guess they get Matthew Stafford, which congrats, you get your one extra fan in the crowd every week of Clayton Kershaw. So the Rams at least have someone in the stadium. But in realistic terms, I want you to think about this too, Zoe, because obviously you mentioned it's going to be a little bit tough with the fact that they're not getting early round picks. But when you look at it in the bigger picture, that may not actually be that bad of a deal. Because compared to paying a player that's an early round draft pick, such as Jared Goff was, there's going to be a hefty price toll. So the fact that they get late first round picks may actually be a blessing in disguise because they're not going to have to pay that much money. Then you add on a third. Sure, don't get me wrong, Jared Goff costs a lot of money, but if he could still be the talent that he once was or was expected to be, this could turn out to be a huge win for Detroit. And when you look at the trade in the bigger picture too, the only other realistic destination, don't get me wrong, like you, I wanted to see him in Indianapolis. However, the only other realistic destination I could have seen him at was San Francisco. And in that trade, let's not forget that the 49ers would have very likely traded Jimmy Garoppolo. So the fact of the matter is, this is more of a spit in the face to Garoppolo, saying that Jared Goff is a more stronger quarterback and has a lot more potential than Garoppolo does being under center. I think the Lions really got a steal off of this. And in the bigger picture, it's going to lead a lot more wins and really isn't as bad as a trade as what it may be put out to be.
Thank you. Thank you for boosting my ego. I didn't want Jimmy Garoppolo either, and San Francisco didn't want to give him away. They offered like nothing for him, but I think I'd rather have Goff than Garoppolo there. And if he can hold out for 2 years while we find our franchise quarterback, I'm good with that too.
It's just a matter of the fact that you're not maybe getting late first round picks. It may actually be better off for the franchise. And then on top of it, who says you can't trade up either? There's still pieces on that team that can be traded to, get better draft stock.
But you can lose Kenny Golladay in free agency. I'll take
Stop. Stop. Do you want me to? I will cry on Zoom right now, Rahill. I will do it.
GM Rahill Jaiswal is like trying to destroy the Lions. Get rid of Carson. Get rid of Golladay. Trying to bring in Carson Wentz.
Get rid of Carson Wentz. Get rid of him before he even gets here. Oh my God.
Let's talk about teams that are actually good. We've got the Super Bowl coming up on Sunday here. The Chiefs and the Buccaneers. And I got to bring it up first, Zoe. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Antonio Brown's evil presence has not hurt this team. They beat the Saints, they beat the Packers, and now they're going up against Patrick Mahomes. And Tom Brady is playing in his 10th Super Bowl. He's figured things out. Maybe he throws some of these check down passes, but he's also been throwing the ball deep. And guess what? The Tampa Bay Buccaneers are playing for a Super Bowl. That's where we're at this point.
I'd talk, but let's let the student of the game over here speak. Over here.
I want Zoe right now to apologize to Tom Brady for saying he can't throw the ball deep down the field. I want an apology.
I don't know if the apology is to Tom Brady. If anything, I think it should more be an apology from Bill Belichick. Because, for this reason, I, as a fan, did not know Brady had the capacity to throw more than 5 yards. Maybe that was on me, but I had never seen him do it in his entire damn career, right? That's fine. Bill Belichick had the opportunity to have him throw however he wanted, and he was like, no, I'm just going to have you throw 5 yards to Edelman every time, or Amendola or someone until they get hurt, and then we'll find you a new low-grade receiver to throw to, and this is how you're going to do it. You and James White become friends because this is what we're going to do for the next 8 years. And sure, they did that, but I had never seen Brady throw. So yeah, that's on me that I didn't know Brady could throw, but he wasn't utilized in the right way. And if anything, I think you have to give props to Bruce Arians because for utilizing him, I never thought I'd say that in my life. Believe me, I'm regretting saying it already. But the way that Brady's been able to utilize his weapons there, and I know he has great targets, but if anything, yes, the apology that I didn't see that out of him, but I think he's proved the haters wrong. So if anything, I just propelled Brady to be better. So you're welcome for the good entertainment.
And I want to be honest here about something else. Bruce Arians now has a track record of making some quarterbacks play better than what people perceive. Let's think about the Arizona Cardinals a couple years ago with Carson Palmer, who was pretty much at the end of the line, and he made them into a playoff team, and Palmer was one of the elite quarterbacks in the NFL that season, and Tom Brady has proven the doubters wrong. Some people were critical that he was a system quarterback. He depended on Belichick, but 43 years old, he's completely changed his game. He's made use of the weapons that he now has, and he's really proving why he's the greatest of all time. And I'm not being a suck up to Tom Brady. I maybe I've seemed like that over the past few months. I'm just saying he's proved people wrong. He's proved Zoe wrong, and now the Buccaneers are in the Super Bowl. But Tim, let's talk a little about the Chiefs here, because these two teams faced off earlier this season, and Kansas City was just all over Tampa Bay in the first quarter with the help of Tyreek Hill. How does Tampa Bay adjust this time to this Kansas City offense, or can they really at all?
Well, I don't think you can adjust to an offense such as Kansas City, but the realistic aspect of this Super Bowl is, and really what we've learned throughout this entire NFL season, listen, it's not easy to beat a football team twice. What you saw early in the season is most certainly not what you're going to see later in the season. I mean, the Buffalo Bills were a living example. Don't get me wrong. Yes, they lost to Kansas City, but they gave up more of a fight in the AFC Championship game than they did earlier on in the year. And I think the thing about this team for Tampa Bay in particular, they've gotten a lot stronger as a unit, not just on the offensive end, but really defensively. Once the season began, they started off a little bit slow. Remember, we were questioning this team was even playoff bound. And they found their rhythm. They were really in sync, and they've been aggressive. And the one thing I love about Bruce Arians in particular, not just on the offensive end, but especially with how they try to set the defense, he's not afraid to be aggressive. And I think that really this Super Bowl in particular, not just for Kansas City, because, I mean, let's be honest, Kansas City feels like they've done everything right this year. When they need a big play, they got it. On the end for Tampa Bay, they obviously, yes, you have Tom Brady, who has played excellent offense. The defense has, though, stepped up when they need it to be. I feel like this is going to be the hardest Super Bowl of all time to predict because it feels like Kansas City should win, and they have the talent to win it yet again. But inside, too, it feels like the Buccaneers should win, and that it's a long time coming, not just for this franchise, but for a team that everyone thought was out the picture earlier on in the season and has become a powerhouse in the NFC.
And there's so many players, too, in the Buccaneers who are on these revenge tours. Antonio Brown trying to prove the haters wrong. Leonard Fournette trying to recover. Jason Pierre-Paul with whatever fingers he has left after the fireworks accident, now being one of the elite defenders in the NFL this season. You know, like, this Tampa Bay team has been really impressive. But the other thing that I think people are forgetting about, this is Brady versus Mahomes. And it was overshadowed by the NFC Championship that same weekend with the incident in the Saints-Rams game. But 2 years ago, the Pats and Chiefs faced off when it was Brady versus Mahomes in the AFC Championship, and that was a showdown. That was one of the great games of these past few years. Mahomes almost got it. He lost to Tom Brady at the end, but I think Mahomes obviously in the regular season figured out how to beat Tom Brady, and this is really a legacy check here, not just for Brady, we've talked about his legacy, but for Patrick Mahomes as well. If he can become a two-time Super Bowl champion, think about how difficult it is to win back-to-back Super Bowls. It's only happened a few times in NFL history, and for him to get that already at such a young age, already be an MVP, be a contender for another this year, likely will finish second to Aaron Rodgers, but still be in the running for MVP. I mean, he's doing crazy things here just 5 years into his NFL career. Rahill, over to you. The one thing that everybody else is talking about, for the first time in 55 years, a team is home for the Super Bowl. Of course, it's not the same as it would have been any other year because there's only, I believe it's 22,000 fans, 7,000 are vaccinated healthcare workers. But do you think that this is going to give Tampa Bay any sort of an advantage playing the game at Raymond James Stadium?
See, I don't know because they played at Raymond James Stadium when the first time they met, and the Chiefs beat them. Now, obviously, that's not the same team, but the Chiefs have played on that turf before. So now, obviously, maybe I think it's going to help them a little bit just because they're probably going to have more of an, I mean, it's at home. I mean, think about a Super Bowl at home. The Vikings got close to it, but that no matter the situation, whether there be less fans, that's still a big deal. So that's that. But I will say, this is Brady versus Mahomes, but it's going to come down to the defenses, really. And who's the defensive coordinator of the Kansas City Chiefs?
Steve Spagnuolo.
There you go. Did it to Brady, trying to do it again to Brady. Now this is it's a different offense, but both offenses can beat you in so many different ways. You want to double Tyreek Hill? Well, then too bad. You got Travis Kelce there. You want to double Travis Kelce? You can't leave Tyreek Hill one-on-one. Sammy Watkins can beat you down the stretch. McCole Hardman's got speed for days. Edwards-Helaire is playing. And I don't know if they're going to mix in Le'Veon Bell. Who knows? Also, Le'Veon Bell and Antonio Brown are playing each other. One of them gets a Super Bowl. How about that? It's a big slap in the face to Steelers fans there.
Juju's on his couch. Yeah.
Well,
how does Roethlisberger feel about that?
He didn't deserve it anyway, but none of them do.
Yeah. But I will say though, Le'Veon Bell's been good about letting Edwards-Helaire take the load off, but still, yeah. Anyway, like I was saying, both offenses both offenses can beat you in so many different ways. We all know what Tampa Bay does. They love, they love their running, Ronald Jones, Leonard Fournette, but Chris Godwin's there, Mike Evans, so it's going to be really interesting. Now it's probably going to be a shootout, but it's going to be like one of those games. Whoever has the ball last is probably going to come out on top, but we'll see, because Chiefs, I believe Eric Fisher, the Chiefs, he's not playing. One of their best offensive linemen. He has tore his Achilles in the AFC title game. So that's a big thing for them. And I mean, we all know what the motto is: to beat Brady, put him under pressure.
And you know who his replacement is, right, Rahill?
I do not. Who is it?
Mike Remmers.
Okay.
And let's not forget what happened the last time he played the Super Bowl. He got eaten up by Von Miller. Yeah. So there's a history right there. The Chiefs do have a little bit to deal with. Yeah,
and again, we all know what you have to do to beat Brady. Put him under pressure. With these deep routes, if you put him under pressure, there's probably going to be one fluttery ball up there. But we'll see, and I can't wait for it.
Oh, it's going to be a great game. I think it's really going to resemble sort of 3 years ago, the Eagle-Patriot game, just with the amount of offense. I think we're going to see a lot of creativity with these offenses. And also we've got former NFL coaches as defensive coordinators with Todd Bowles and Steve Spagnuolo. So it's going to be fun to watch. But we've come to that point. After all our pick'ems, me and Tim, throughout the season since September, it's time to pick the Super Bowl. So I'm going to start with Zoe. I don't just want who wins. I want the final score, and I want who do you think is going to be the MVP?
All right. First of all, I don't know how I think it was wishful thinking to compare your Eagles to either of these teams, but moving past
I'm not comparing a team. I'm comparing to the game. I think they played such well on offense. I think we're going to see.
I think even comparing the game
defensive, creative offenses.
Okay. Well, my pick for the game is I go the Chiefs. And this is why. I know Tom Brady's had success. And, it's been a pattern all season that hasn't worked out for me. But let's doubt Tom Brady once more. The thing is that the Chiefs' offense is so powerful. And honestly, I don't see anyone stopping it. The Bucs have to play up to such a ridiculous level. Also, there's a chance they don't have Cameron Brate, which I think affects all their scheming with the two tight ends. But for a score, I don't know. Part of me wants to say high scoring just because these are two, such fun offenses to watch. So I'm going to go with a nice 32-35. Chiefs win it. So, medium range scoring. And I'd say MVP, honestly, just because the way it'll work out, it'll probably be Mahomes, just because when the Chiefs win, yes, he's going to dazzle and he's going to have to dazzle. And he always does. He always puts on a little bit of a show. So there you go.
All right, Rahill, who are you going with? What's your pick? What's your score? And what's your MVP?
Normally I'd go with Kansas City, but I've learned this lesson way too many times, guys. We've all learned this lesson way too many times. You can't doubt Tom Brady. I doubted him against the Saints. That didn't work out. I picked him against the Packers, but still there was doubt in my mind after in that second half. Proved us wrong. Doubted him when he was down 28-3. And again, this is gonna look like I'm a huge Brady fanboy, but you guys know I'm probably anything but it. In fact, I've been a Brady hater for the longest time. But yeah, I'm gonna go. Mahomes is gonna do his thing. I have no worries about that. But the Tampa Bay Buccaneers win this game by a final score of 38-34.
All right. And who's your MVP for the game? Brady?
Oh, Tom Brady, yeah. It's either going to be Brady or Mahomes.
Yeah, most likely. All right, Tim, how about you?
I'm going to have to agree with Rahill. I think the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, it's a very hard Super Bowl to predict, though, if I'm being honest. Listen, and I already mentioned it before, both these teams' offense is electric. When it comes down to Tampa Bay can they not fumble the football? Ronald Jones, hold on. Leonard Fournette, please hold on. If that's all they really need to do to be successful against the Kansas City's Chiefs rush defense. But on the offensive end, listen, this is going to be a shootout. There is no denying that. Points are going to go off. And if I'm being honest, we are going to see probably the highest in terms of total yardage game that we've seen since that last Super Bowl with the Atlanta Falcons and New England Patriots. And I mentioned that Super Bowl in particular because I think we are going to see overtime yet again here, folks. I think that Tom Brady is going to lead a drive and continue the story that let's not forget 2 years ago in the AFC Championship game when we said, is Patrick Mahomes going to knock off the greatest quarterback of all time? I think the story continues. Brady gets a first possession touchdown to win the game 37-31 over the Chiefs in OT.
All right, so it's come down to me. We've gotten 2 Bucks picks, 1 Chiefs pick. Now, both these teams are definitely deserving, and I'll start with the Chiefs here. Patrick Mahomes is going to be back, and he's going to be back for a long time. Eventually, when Tom Brady finally decides to hang up the helmet, Mahomes is really going to pick things up, and I don't see Andy Reid going anywhere. They still have Tyreek Hill. They still have Travis Kelce. This team has so much talent. They've already got young talent, too, bringing in Clyde Edwards-Helaire, a rookie running back, who has really lit things up throughout this year. But Tampa Bay, man, they've got all these guys. They want to win a Super Bowl. And I know Tom Brady's coming back next year, but a lot of these guys, they're older players. They're going for the ring. We don't know what they're going to be like next year. They've gotten some luck. They've won in New Orleans. They've won at Lambeau. And they're going to win at home in Super Bowl 55. I'm going with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers winning this game. I also think it's going to be a close game. And I also think this is going to overtime. I'm going to go a little higher scoring than Tim here. I'm going 40-34 in overtime. Brady is going to score in a game-winning possession, but I don't think he's going to throw a touchdown. Let's see how good my prediction is. I'm saying it's going to be a game-winning rushing touchdown for Leonard Fournette. It's going to be 40-34. I think Brady's going to have a nice throw down the field. Fournette's going to punch it in. He's going to pull a James White like White a few years ago in the Super Bowl against the Falcons. I'm saying 40-34. Despite that, though, Tom Brady will win MVP, and he will win his 7th Super Bowl. So,
can I add one more thing as well to my prediction regards? I have the pass going to Antonio Brown. And I see Zoe's face already going to Antonio Brown to win it. And I did mention my MVP as well. I should have mentioned that as well. I have Brady by far as well.
Yeah, so we'll post all our predictions.
Wait. Hey, can I get in?
Yeah, go ahead, Rahill.
Gabe Witter is going to Rob Gronkowski. It always happens. There you go. Gabe Witter to Rob Gronkowski.
I can't tell which is the most egregious. I think it's still Leonard Fournette because that is a whole nother world, Eddie. I'm not even getting into that right now. But honestly, I wouldn't agree with you, but like the closest you were gonna get to me agreeing was your pick until I heard rushing touchdown Leonard Fournette.
Hey,
what is that?
Fournette in fantasy, and that's how I beat Tim in the championship. So I know
he tries to punch a fan on the sidelines. That's gonna go well. Like, what do you expect from him? He's not gonna score the game-winning touchdown. 0 chance.
Okay, well, we'll see what happens. But regardless, we've got our picks in. 3 for the Bucks, Zoe the Lone Ranger on the Chiefs. But we'll have to watch Sunday. It should be a good one. We can watch the Kitten Bowl, the Puppy Bowl, all the other weird knockoff Super Bowls, and then the actual show at 6:30 on CBS. Thank you to Zoe Alter and Rahill Jaiswal once again for joining us here on SportsBeak.
Always.
Yep.
All right, so Tim and I will be back next week. Next week, we'll recap the Super Bowl, anything else that happens in baseball and the NBA, and we'll preview the Daytona 500, so stay tuned for that. Until next week, I'm Eddie Kalegi.
And I'm Tim Moore.
We'll see you here on SportsSpeak. Have a great rest of your weekend.